impressed by the fact that you boldly dived into this melodramatic dream pool by combining such things as amnesia, love, eroticism with such abandon. And my question is, where did this come from?
I think, I don't know. I've just preferred, maybe it's because I was never read to as a child, and as an adult I tried to figure out, I tried to go back into my childhood to, like, just literally, the way I didn't learn to, I was so ashamed. My dad was the general manager of the Canadian national hockey team.
Called the Maroons?
Yeah, and I didn't know how to skate. And so, it's really embarrassing. And so at age 18, I went out and bought a cheap pair of skates and waited till the hockey rinks closed and the lights went out at night. And I would teach myself how to skate after dark when no one was watching. And I sort of felt that way about reading. I sort of came to it in my 20s, and I felt maybe the way I learned to skate by using a hockey stick to turn me into a tripod, so I wouldn't fall down. I kind of used some sort of elementary prop, and I started to read very grown-up books, all the great canonical literature things, but I decided to look at all of them as if they were fairy tales somehow, and sometimes looking at something as a fairy tale really helped get you started and understanding the inner workings of things. And so I always entered a book through the fairy tale door or a movie and trying to understand it. And then once I got inside, I'd find out, oh no, it's not a fairy tale at all, and I'd sort of figure something out, or I wouldn't figure it out at all. But when something really was a fairy tale, like a Val Lewton horror movie, or any of those Lon Chaney movies, or melodramas, where the truth is there, but in ways that everyone feels is exaggerated. But the truth, as you know, the truth exaggerated isn't the truth anymore. So I think I finally learned by reading the theater writer Eric Bentley's book he's got a chapter in his book on theater on melodrama. He sort of defined it for me, and I've understood it and loved it all the more ever since. He defined melodrama not as the truth exaggerated, but the truth uninhibited. We all, it may be true of all of us that we're jealous of someone, but you try to conceal that. Or you might lust after someone, but you're not just allowed to act on that lust. You have to behave yourself or you get arrested. If you hate someone, you're not allowed to punch them. If you feel like crying, it's really frowned upon, especially if you're a man, to cry in public. But in your dreams, you have no real control over what's happening, and you just get to be uninhibited. And some pretty crazy things happen in dreams, we all know. But it's often your feelings, your true feelings, are allowed to bloom and uncover and uninhibit themselves. And they might be so uninhibited you don't even recognize them. They may seem distorted or exaggerated, but in good melodrama, you have 90 minutes to tell a really big story. So, you got your Oedipus. Well, that's tragedy, but it's the same idea. You get someone who doesn't just maybe have a mummy complex, but actually literally loves his mother, physically loves her. Or if you don't just have sibling rivalries, you have your Cain and Abel situation where someone literally kills a rival and things. So it's when I watch melodrama now, I'm just looking I look at the really big broad strokes and try to figure out which of these broad strokes applies to something I've experienced or seen in other friends, and I can usually find something to identify with. So it was like someone just gave me a big hunk of skeleton keys to literature and movies when I started, what's that expression? The old philosophical dictum, everything tastes more or less like chicken. All film and literature is more or less melodrama. I don't know. So I just thought there's nothing to be ashamed of. But melodrama became very uncool, say in the late 50s or start of the 60s, with lots more location shooting. Somehow movie sets are more conducive to melodrama except in reality shows, which are pure melodrama and take place out anywhere. But it just seems like in American cinema it became uncool to like melodrama, even though it's still there, but just more disguised with
Well, the thing
men
about-
started growing their hair out.
Well, the thing about melodrama that I always found to be particularly interesting is the fact that the sheer energy that's produced in order to generate a very convincing melodrama, the director or the narrator or the screenwriter has to invest so much detail into it, where it almost becomes like an act of faith to sort of plunge into this world. And since you seem to have a particularly strong affinity to melodrama, is it because it's an old historical form? Because when someone watches Guy Maddin's films,
You're thrown into another world of celluloid from the deep past. It's almost Neolithic. You get the chance to see film as it's meant to be seen, but it's extremely distressed. It's like taking 35 millimeter or Super 8, and it looks like you're watching like a cave painting. And I'm just wondering, like when you were growing up and you went to the University of Winnipeg, one thing, is it true that when you were born, your parents also got a TV the same day?
Apparently,
and they placed the TV and the baby on the floor at the same time?
Apparently that's true, yeah. The TV and I were brought home at the same time, yeah. And I remember the TV was my best friend, but it was very primitive television. I was born in 1956, and it didn't even. Winnipeg TV stations didn't even start broadcasting till noon, but I was happy to watch just snow on the television. Or, of course, when no local stations are on the air, that's when really drifty, ghosty transmissions from North Dakota would come up. Maybe just a brief glimpse of concentration, an NBC game show or something. It was a Grand Forks, North Dakota thing that if you held on to the rabbit ears on the back of the TV, sort of held.
With aluminum foil?
Yeah, but it was something that all old people have had experience with, but it was something that really made me appreciate like durational art, I guess. I realized, I might as well have been watching Warhol films, hot out of the lab, but I was just watching my own versions of, Empire and but they were just broadcasts from WDAZ in Grand Forks, North Dakota.
Well, how'd you go from having a degree in economics to becoming a house painter and also a bank teller?
Yeah.
And to getting to film, was there someone there that sort of opened the portal for you to see? Were you watching films all the time with the secret club?
I was a very indifferent student, alas. I got a degree in economics and math, but without much joy in either subject. And it turns out I was just following the path of least resistance. I could pass those tests, and they didn't have labs, and my schedule, if I majored in those subjects, I'd be finished. I'd have afternoons off. These were like career passions, It was just like, I could get in really long afternoon naps if I, majored in those subjects. But after at about the age of 24, a brief marriage I had, I became kind of I'm exactly 10 years younger than David Lynch. And I had kind of an Eraserhead situation going on. I impregnated somebody, and we had our lovely daughter, my daughter now, Jillian. She doesn't look like the Eraserhead baby at all. She's really gorgeous. But the whole thing happened so strangely. I found out this girl that wasn't even my girlfriend came over one night and said she was pregnant. Would I marry her? And I hadn't even had a girlfriend yet, but I'd managed to get drunk one night and get her pregnant, alas. But I was terrified, but so flattered that someone, even though she wasn't my girlfriend, was so scared that she wanted to marry me. And I accepted. And I was like, wow, I'm going to be married? I don't know. Wait till my friends, so they'll be so jealous. And it's just so stupid, you know. It was literally, I was already in David Lynch land, and I didn't know about the existence of David Lynch yet. And then the following morning, something odd happened. I went out and I said goodbye to this girl because she went away for summer camp. And I don't know, I was like, I'm going to be married. And the next morning, a very odd thing happened. It was kind of a 1-2 delirium punch. My father suddenly died. And I was like, and I phoned this girl and I said, you know, like, my father just died. And she said, what do you want me to do about it? I never met him, you know, stuff like that. And I kind of just, next thing I knew, I was married and had a baby. And the only time that I could really think clearly was that middle of the night trip to the bathroom to pee, where for some reason all of the anesthetics and delirium of the day of my life just sort of fell away, and I would look in the mirror for a couple of seconds and go, holy shit. And then go back to bed and wake up and, you know, look after the baby and things like that. And so I was kind of living a melodrama, but a dreamy melodrama. And when I saw the David Lynch movie, maybe when I was 24, so the movie had been out for a few years, I thought, holy smokes, someone has made a movie about me. And so many people who saw Eraserhead didn't get it, or didn't, you know, just saw something that was a bunch of surreal things sort of continuously strung together. But it was clearly, I didn't need to know anything about the filmmaker to know that he had been the father of an unplanned pregnancy and had been very confused and delirious and spent many months wandering around in a nocturnal landscape of dread. You know, and it was really exciting to me that this film was clearly made with not necessarily, you know, famous actors or anything, but it just had a lot of atmosphere. And the Luis Buñuel film, the same thing, surrealism and melodrama. Like, surrealism is, you know, by definition, subconscious, disinhibitions, just everything you're really, good surrealism has real feelings in it that, well, for me anyway, my favorite surrealism has feeling in it, and it's usually lust, but it's a feeling, you know, and it comes out in those strange, shameful ways, and that it feels good to admit, to fess up to. So I, at age 24, when my marriage suddenly ended, this brief, nightmarish in the best possible sense, marriage ended, I suddenly found myself with having no friends anymore. They just, I betrayed them by going into this domestic situation. And so I started hanging around the university and just started watching movies. And I did run into somebody who became a good friend of mine, a film professor that just let me, he got used to me sneaking into his classes to watch movies, and we became friends.
This is George Tolles?
Yeah, George Tolles. He became a writing partner eventually. We don't write together now, but he's still a good friend. And I don't know, he just taught me a lot. He turned me on to a lot of books to read and a lot of movies to watch, and I just rotated my hemispheres. I said goodbye to math. I can't add numbers anymore. And I said goodbye to economics. I'm in debt like crazy. And just decided to wander around inside the mysterious, subjective world in which layers just keep peeling themselves back. And when it's going good, the things are just endlessly rewarding. There's no answer.
Did you find that liberating? This
It was really liberating, and I found actually was a little bit, I felt very intimidated by that world and never used that hemisphere ever. And when I found I wasn't so bad at it, or at least George slowly brought me out and gave me some confidence, I became downright arrogant about it, you know, and then I needed to tune up, and now I'm, you know, like, whatever. But it felt good, but I felt like I really caught a break there by just at that time in my life meeting the right person and a couple other people around there that just made me passionate about something, because I was really an indifferent student of living even until then, and all of a sudden I found film and lived, and I was even briefly thrilled about theater, although actually going to plays cured me of that.